Alright, welcome back to the Roblox course, and in this lecture we're going to add the leaderboard and the timer to our obby. So in order to do that, we first of all need to add the leaderboard setup again. And to do that, we are going to create a new script here inside of our server script service, and we're going to call this the leaderboard setup. And now in theory, we could already just get the script that we've written in our first introduction and copy that, but we're just going to write it again because it's not that complicated. But you could just use the other one. So this is going to be leaderboard setup with the parameter player. And then we're going to say local leader stats equals an instance new of folder. I'm going to say leader stats.name is equal to leader stats. Very important that this is written correctly. Otherwise, it will not work. Leader stats.parent is equal to the player. And then we're going to have a new variable. We're going to call this time variable. Variable equals instance.new. This time is going to be a number value. And time variable.name equals time. That kind of makes sense. And then the time variable.value is going to be 0. And then the time variable.parent is going to be the leader stats. Then we just need to add game.players. Player added. So connecting the player added event again, and then having the leaderboard set up in here. Very important that it is without the parentheses and just the name leaderboard setup. Right, and then what this is going to do, it is already going to have a time variable inside of the leaderboard. So let's just start it, and we should see. There you go. So we have a time variable here. Now the time variable currently are for the teams. They are added up here. So it's not the worst thing ever, but this is something that we could change as well. But right now, that's not really the most important thing. I think starting with something right now makes more sense now. And then there's another script that we actually need to make, and that's going to be the timekeeper, basically. So we're going to actually call this script the timekeeper. We can also call it, timer or yeah, something like that. It doesn't really matter. So timekeeper. I like that. And what we want is we want to have two sort of parts that are non-collidable. So basically sort of triggers that when you enter into them, then the timer starts, and then at the end the timer stops. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this part and actually duplicate it once again with Control D. We're going to scale it up a little bit and move it up as well, something like that. And then scale it. What we can do is when we have this selected, first of all, we're going to rename this part to start. And then we're going to go down here. Right now, for the purpose of this, we're going to say it's going to have a 0.75 transparency. And we're also going to make the can collide behavior Boolean here. We're actually going to turn that off, and then we can scale it however we want to. And we want to make sure that we have it, that it doesn't start before, like inside of this platform, but afterwards. But it does extend quite a bit. Let's even go a little bit down here. So let's actually even go something like that. So that once the player enters this, this box, basically, this trigger, then the timer is going to start. Now, the transparency to set 0.75, we just set this for, let's say, debugging purposes, so that we can see this, basically trigger. But we're gonna make it completely transparent once the actual game would be released, let's say. Right, and then we want to have exactly the same thing. So we're going to duplicate this, and we're going to put this like right at the back. And let's just put it something like that. So let's actually, yeah, there you go. Now it's centered, and then maybe like that. So we could, for example, also add let's make this red here, the ending, and we're going to call this the finish line. And this is, of course, inside of then stage 3. Let's put this in stage 3, right? And yeah, so those are all that we need. And now we need to get these parts. So start part was in game.workspace.stage1, and then it was just called start. And then the local finish part, we're going to call this finish part, it's going to be in workspace stage 3, and this was the finish line. Right, so now we have both of those parts, and that's pretty good. Instead of here, we need a new variable that's called started. This is going to be false at the start, and then we have a function called start timer. So this is going to start a timer for a specific part that touches it. And what we want to do is basically we want to see, okay, has this part gotten a humanoid part in it? So we want the part.parent, right? And then we want to have the find first child humanoid. And if that is the case, then we can proceed, because otherwise we have touched something that is not the player, basically. Then we can say local player equals game.players. And then we're going to actually call the player by using these brackets here, and then just passing in part.parent.name, because we know that the name of the parent, so the part is, for example, the left leg or the right leg or the right arm, and then the parent is going to be the character model, and that name is going to be correspondent to whatever the player name is. And this is a way we can get the player then. And we also have to write player correctly. There you go. And then we're going to say started is equal to true. And then what we're going to do is we're going to say started. There you go. That's started. And then we're going to say local leader stats. So now we're going to get leader stats from player.leaderstats. That is, of course, the folder that we've created with the leaderboard setup. And we're going to have a local time stat. That's going to be leader stats and leader stats find first child time. Then also making sure that this is written in big. And then we're going to have while started and time stats. So while we both have a time stats, so while we have a time variable inside of our leaderboard, and while the started variable here is also true, then we're going to say time stats dot value is plus equals 0.01, and then we're going to wait for 0.01. So this is time, sorry, it's time stat, of course. There you go. So the idea here is simply that we're going to wait 0.01 seconds, and then we're going to add 0.01. So this is basically just a 1-to-1 ratio of adding, 1/100th of a second, and each 100th of a second. So basically 1-to-1 ratio. Now, important that we actually have that this starts at, well, the start, I guess, right? So this is going to be the start part dot touched. Nope, not top surface, but touched, please. There you go, touched. We went with the touched event and connect it with the start timer. Once again, making sure that the parentheses are not in there, otherwise we're going to have an error. And then we also want that would be the finish part touched, and connect that with, let's just make a function here because it's actually going to be really easy. It's not going to be very complicated, because the only thing that we need to do is started equals false. And then just for the hell of it right now, what we're going to do is we're going to, not debug, we're going to actually print. We're going to actually print out just, hey, you have successfully run the RB. Just so that we have something printed out at the end. Right, and in theory, this should already be everything, as long as the names of the parts here, these sort of event triggers are correct, then that's going to be fine. And let's see if everything works. So no errors are pretty nice. And like I said, as soon as we touch this this part, we're going to have the timer start. So let's just jump in. And there we go. The timer has started. And it has started a little bit fast. Yeah, that was awfully fast, and I actually found the issue. I have forgotten a little statement here, and that is going to be end not started. So the idea is that we don't enter this function if we have started already. So once started is set to true, we're not going to enter this again. And now it should work fine. So let's see if this works. And now even if we're, even if we enter again, it's totally fine. And this is definitely now real time, let's say. That's pretty good. Okay, now, right. So that's pretty nice, actually, that works already. And now what we can do is we can basically just, for testing purposes, like, go put all of those things to here, just so that we can try it once. So basically say this. And yeah, that's going to be fine. So that we can just test out whether or not the starting and stopping works. So you could, of course, do this a little bit more elegantly, but I think we're going to be fine now. So now it should have started. And we're now also at team 4 right here. And as soon as we go into this cloud, let's say, it's going to stop. There you go. And hey, you have successfully run the obby. Great. Right, so that's pretty nice. Now we're going to just Control Z this so that everything is back to the start. I'm going to also set the transparency for both of these things to 1 right now. There you go. Right, yeah, and that is basically how easy it is to add a timer. And the leaderboard, of course, was something that's fairly easy as well. Let's just make this be locked so that we can even click on it accidentally inside of the workspace here. And yeah, that was basically it. How to create the game in Roblox, just let's say a simple obby right now, with basically all of the steps that we've learned previously. We've not actually applied everything, but we've applied, I would say, a good-sized chunk of the things that we've learned. And after this, of course, we're going to go on to more intermediate and advanced topics in Roblox. And yeah, so if there are any questions, of course, feel free to ask and I'll be sure to respond. Every part, every script, and all of the files are, of course, once again available as a resource for you to download. And yeah.